Hey everybody. This one, I'm going to talk about something that has come up and plenty of people have noticed, but let's talk about my breasts. So, I suppose to backtrack a little bit, these first started developing when not right when, but after a fairly significant amount of time, several years on testosterone blockers, and now having been on estrogen for about 9 months now, at time of recording, they have filled out further. So I kind of just want to talk about the experience of this development. So the first thing to address is, I want to stress this really hard. The results that I had on just my testosterone blockers are incredibly atypical. They're not unheard of, and here's why. Because what testosterone blockers do, they do what they imply. They don't actually stop your body from producing testosterone. What they do instead is they block the receptors that would be receiving the testosterone so that it's not basically having the same impact on your body that it would normally. But it actually doesn't lower your T count or anything, I find that to be a fun fact. So the reason that going on testosterone blockers alone does not usually, but can cause a certain amount of breast development is testosterone as a hormone is one of the things telling your body that this should be muscle instead of fat. Now, obviously, some men don't have a lot of muscle here. Some men have more fat here. Like that still varies from person to person, metabolism, shape that you're in, a whole bunch of other factors. But broadly speaking, testosterone says this should be pecs. So, as I said, do not count on this. You can get some development just going on testosterone blockers, and I did. Now, part of that also has to do with the fact that I don't work out very much. And what working out I do is largely running or biking. It's lower body. It's stuff on my legs and it's cardio. But I don't work my upper body. So if I had been doing anything to maintain this as muscle, then it probably would have stayed that way. But instead, because especially at the time that I actually went on testosterone blockers, I was not in as good a shape as I am right now, the transition of this from muscle to fat just kind of happened. And it was a while before I kind of accepted that that was what was happening, because I had a very legitimate fear. Well, I say fear. It wouldn't have really been a problem, but I had a personal hang-up on the idea that all I had done was gain weight and developed moobs, for lack of a more delicate way to put it. But the point at which I was like, no, there's a little more going on here is basically the point at which I developed the underside. Because by and large, when men through however it happens, whether it be a lack of exercise, weight, whether it be glands, or whatever the cause, not judging, but the development here tends to be kind of flat. It kind of it flows into the stomach for the most part. When I developed an under boob, I was like, okay, there's a little bit more to this than just the fact that I should really try and get in better shape, which is now something that I have done, and surprise, surprise, these didn't go away. Now, the effects of estrogen did fill these out. Again, largely developing the underside of this. But I also want to talk about some of the other effects of this. Now, at this point, my bra size that I wear is a 42B. And it's funny to me because lots of people think that my chest is bigger than that, but the larger you go on the band width, the smaller the cup size gets. So, if my chest was, a 36, these would be C's. But because my chest measurement is a 42, that's just a B. And that's just the reality of how these measurements and the cups work out. It's actually worth noting that I do not wear bras very often. I don't particularly care for them. And I'll usually only really wear them if my nipples would otherwise show through the top. Other than that, not too much. I mean, except for like running, I'll wear a sports bra. My God, I have to. And that's another thing. You really do need to be prepared to strap these down if you're going through vigorous motions like running, because that hurts, and that hurts quick. I learned that very early on into my starting to get into running, which I say I get into it as if like, oh, I'm a runner now. Like, I hate doing it. I do it, but I do hate it. That's a side tangent. Anyways, like early on, like I started, like I did my warm-up walk, because you don't just start from a dead standstill. And then I tried to start doing the run, and I was like, ow, okay. That wasn't good. That said, the bounce to them was a lot of fun. Like, I really enjoy coming downstairs in the morning, and I'll like purposefully put a little bounce in my step just to have that. So, there is some fun to be had there. But I do have a selection of bras for on the occasions when I have outfits that I really should either support these more than they are naturally, or, like I said, the nipple thing. I suppose that's the other thing that I'll mention. My areola got a fair bit bigger, and that's on both. It's a little bit bigger on the left. I've mentioned before that I believe that like they don't develop evenly, and that's true of cis women as well. One is usually slightly bigger than the other, but yeah, my areolas expanded a bit, which, I mean, the main thing where that's going to come up is when public live performances are allowed again, and I'm able to start doing burlesque. I'm going to have to get all new pasties, because the pasties I have won't cover the nipples I've now developed. So that'll be something to deal with. Other than that, that's basically just like, well, that's a thing that happened. Early on, there was a significant increase in the sensitivity of my nipples. So, and that they are still now more sensitive than they were before I was on anything, but they're not as sensitive now as they were when the bulk of the growth was happening. And like, they may still grow a little bit more. Like I said, I've been on estrogen now for 9 months. It's possible they'll develop further. I'm not really expecting or counting on it, but there was definitely a time where like I would accidentally graze it with my arm or something, or, bump into something. It was like, whew. So the increased sensitivity threw me off for a little bit there. There's no question about that. I think where things were sort of at their strangest, I guess, for lack of a better term, was when I was still working the day job that I used to have. Because when I was only on the testosterone blockers and they started to develop, I wasn't out at work. I've done a video about coming out on the job in the very lackadaisical way that I ended up doing it. But I wasn't really out at all when these started developing. So there were a couple of things that I did to basically try and hide that. The first was in colder weather to wear bulky sweaters that just sort of covered over what was developing. When it got into warmer weather, and I couldn't really, well, I'm gonna say I couldn't get away with wearing a sweater. I could have worn a sweater, but like I didn't want to because it was hot. That was when at that point I was getting A-cup training bras to clamp down on this as much as I possibly could. There was still a hint of it there, but early on, with the strap down with the tight sports bra. Did I say training bra earlier? I meant to say sports bra. Okay. I should check that in the edit, but I won't because I'm lazy. But with those clamped down, there was still a little bit of a hint, but I was masculine presenting enough that people might have mistaken them for pecs. Might actually thought I worked out, which, that would have been nice. Don't know if anybody actually thought that, but that's what I told myself. And that was an ongoing concern for a while. And that is something that you really should keep in mind. If you're going to go on a hormone regimen and you're not out yet, you need to account for hiding these, because they're not going to wait for you to be ready and to be out. That is, I think, about all I really had to say. I don't have like a grand conclusion. I mean, other than the fact that I really like my breasts. It's funny, I didn't have dysphoria I've talked about the fact that I don't have severe body dysphoria, really, but I definitely never had any kind of dysphoria about my chest, but now that it's become what it is, I really love it. I would sure not feel whole without it now. At the time, I didn't think I was wrong in some way physically for not having them, but I feel more me with them. And I'm also really delighted that they came into the extent that they have, because I certainly know plenty of trans women. And again, I always have to clarify this when I use that word. I don't claim to be a trans woman. I still identify as gender fluid. I am not claiming to be binary trans. But I know I am friends with trans women who got very little development up top. And I mean, I feel bad because this has been really nice. Tit talk, I guess. So that's my boobs. So that'll wrap up this one, folks. Thank you so much for watching and listening through to the end. And please remember that you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are loved. See you next time.